Hi everyone, this is Constellations here. So Rosario details are out in the beta, which makes sense since 1.3 has gone live. So I just quickly go through her stats as well as her skills. I have to say she has some really good stats and skills. Because if you look here, her HP and base attack for a Polearm user is considerably high. Defense as well. So if you look, let's say we compare against Xiangling. Xiangling is 225 attack, 10875 HP. Rosario has 12289 HP, 240 attack. Defense, Xiangling only has like 669. She has 710. Not that we really care about defense anyway, but yeah. So attack percentage for her ascension, I guess is okay. Although given how her talents and constellations work, crit rate would be better. But I suppose crit rate is a bit too OP for a 4-star character to have as ascension stat. So 24% attack is not too bad. Pretty standard really. So if you look at the normal attacks, basically her normal attacks is also 5 hit. Maybe let me just do Google Translate. I think that's better, right? Because this is machine translate and I can understand Chinese, so that was why I was looking at Chinese initially. Okay, so this is pretty standard. It's basically the same description as Xiangling's, but there's a huge difference here. If you look at Xiangling's attack, at level 1 it's 40 plus typically, and you have 70 plus at level 9, 77% at level 9, which slowly increases to like 100 plus. But for Rosaria, she actually starts with 52.46% the first hit. So that's already 10% more than Xiangling, 10% of 40. So that every hit she does 25% more damage than Xiangling for the first hit. And at level 9 is 96.38%. This is very very high actually for a polearm user, because polearm's attack speed is usually very fast. So can you imagine with this amount of attack using a polearm? Wow. In fact, her attack stats are almost similar to a 5-star character like Xiao. You see level 9 here. If you add 46 plus 46 is about 92%. In fact, she's slightly higher. She's at 96%. Her base normal attack percentage is higher than Xiao. Of course, Xiao has higher base attack as a 5-star character in terms of his base attack here. But still, the fact that she has higher percentage damage on her skills is really impressive. If you go back to the rest of the skills, you'll see that she eventually even reaches up to close to 150%. In fact, it's 155%. So it's really very impressive, her percentage scaling of her attack. This is not critical damage, this is charge attack. I have no idea why the translation is critical, but this is the charge attack, and this is 25 stamina cost. Physical exertion. Okay, 251% for her charge attack. Xiangling is 240, okay, so slightly higher, not too imba. Zhongli 1 should be quite low, because Zhongli's attack percentage are very abysmal. If you look here, his level 9 is all quite bad. That's why he has that buff with the HP percentage, right? Okay, but for Xiao, even Xiao's charge attack is not as high as hers. But obviously, Xiao is really more about the plunging and some normal attacks in between. The burst duration in between your bursts. But as of now, Rosaria basically has higher attack percentage than Xiao, which is really crazy. I think they are. This is really really high for a 4-star character to have slightly higher than a 5-star character like Xiao. So it's really wow. Okay, the next one is the elemental skill, the confession skill. Basically, it's a bit weird. The skill name is called Confession, but basically she's doing a bad step. This skill allows her to move quickly behind the target enemy, piercing and slashing with a spear, causing ice element damage because she's a cryo user, right? The description is a bit weird. Even in Chinese, it's saying that after moving to the target enemy, then she will pierce and slash with a spear. So that's why there's 2 hit component here. And for the skill damage, it's actually pretty high for a 4-star character. At 111.52% at plus 258.4. So that's like 360 plus, almost 370%. It's actually pretty high for an elemental skill for a 4-star character. And cooldown is nice, it's 7 seconds cooldown. But there is a caveat here where you cannot use it against larger enemies. So I don't know how they are going to do this targeting thing, because there's no real target per se, targeting system in and there's no point and click in Genshin, right? So it sounds more like the skill should be a skill where she can pierce then slash. Based on the description, it sounds like without targeting an enemy, she will move to the nearest target or the target they are facing and pierce and slash from the back. But it can't work on larger enemies. I wonder how this will work, whether or not on larger enemies you will just immediately attack and not move, or because this is it really matters how this will work because of her talent, which I will run through shortly. So next is this is an elemental burst, but the description is wrong. If it's in Chinese, right, it actually says 终命的胜利. So 终命 is actually means death or funeral. So it's more like sacrament of death rather than sacrament of life. This is a Google Translate issue. You know, when you use machine translate, it's not always accurate. Yeah. So it's sacrament of death. And essentially how her burst works based on the description is that she will swing her weapon around, want to sweep the enemies around, and then then slam an ice spear down onto the ground. So that's why there's 2 tier of damage here. First one being the swing, the second being the slamming move. And subsequently after that, there is this ice spear. Because gun and spear has the same word in Chinese. That's the reason why the machine translates it to gun. Yeah, but essentially it's ice spear, continuous damage, about 183.6% at level 9, assuming you don't have C6. Okay, sorry, not C6, C3. So this skill damage itself is pretty nice, but without looking at how the skill works, it's hard to say whether or not this is like super strong or weak, because this percentage is higher than Ganyu's, but Ganyu's elemental shards do deal at quite a high frequency. Not sure how the frequency of this will work. This we only know in future. Duration is 8 seconds, cooldown is 15 seconds. Doesn't sound that great, right? But there's something that will change this, which is one of her constellations. Energy is 60, so I guess it's a fair amount. Not a short amount, but a fair amount. Not a low amount, sorry, but a fair amount. Okay. So she is a ballad user, so that's nice because I don't have much characters that's really using ballad. The only one I have is Fisher, if I'm not wrong. Okay, in fact we should check. So yeah, so ballad are actually used by these characters here. Okay, Fisher, Keia, Lisa, Venti, Albedo, Rosaria. So at this point in time, all of her skill damage, right, looks to be pretty high. Especially her normal attack. It looks like she's going to be a main DPS, a physical main DPS, likely. Although you can use Chongyun to make her a cryo, but it's still not 100% uptime, but it's still pretty nice. Almost 100%, I guess. Okay. She uses Shadow of the Warrior, which is being shared by Ganyu. Okay, so now let's talk about her talents. So the first talent is obviously the standard talent, the one that comes before any leveling or any ascension. So basically, during night time, from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., she buffs the movement speed of everyone in the team by 10%. But this effect does not apply in... Okay, the translation here is a bit weird, but Secret Realm should refer to the dungeon instance, those story instances. Conquest Realm here, if I look at the Chinese words, is actually the domains. Deep Spiral is Spiral Abyss. So essentially it can't work in these regions. So in other words, it works in the overworld, the larger world itself, when you are doing exploration, mining, commissions, etc. Okay. Second talent, which should be the one that you get after ascending at level 20. Okay, this is eventually means the confession of guilty devouring. It's because of the way the translation works, but eventually this whole portion refers to confession, which is an elemental skill. When you manage to attack from behind the target, you actually get a buff of 12% crit rate for 5 seconds. 5 seconds, so it's not 100% uptime because her skill cooldown is 7 seconds. Okay, you get a 12% crit rate buff for 5 seconds, and you must take note not to use it behind large enemies because you wouldn't end up moving to behind the large enemies. Sorry, you shouldn't use it on large enemies. So a bit of care to be taken there. And why? Because of the next talent that she gets after ascending at level 70. Basically, she gets to share her crit rate with everyone in the team, excluding herself. 15% of her own crit rate. So there's also one statement here: critical strike rate gain in this way cannot exceed 15%. So in other words, you can't go beyond 100% crit rate on Rosaria and try to give a bigger boost to the rest of the teammates. You can only go to 100%. So they don't want people to exploit this per se. But it's actually not that high of an amount if you think about it. In order to get from, let's say, on average, right, you will have something like 50 plus crit rate, 60 crit rate. You'll still be able to give about 7% to 8% boost to the rest of your teammates, which is not too bad. Not too bad, but it's still a very conditional thing because it's only upon casting her elemental burst, and then she can share for 10 seconds her crit rate. But her elemental burst has a cooldown of 15 seconds, so it's not 100% uptime in terms of the buff. There is a 5-second interval. Okay, but it's still pretty nice. And the biggest caveat here is whether or not the Blizzard set as well as the Cryo Resonance effects will count towards giving to the teammates, because there are conditions with regards to those crit rate buff. Like for the Blizzard set, the 4-piece set effect, it's 20% crit rate against enemies affected by cryo, and another further 20% against enemies that are frozen. Okay, then the cryo resonance is 15% against enemies affected by cryo. So I don't know whether or not when you cast the sacrament itself, how will this crit rate buff will it also transfer such conditional crit rates to your characters? Maybe your characters will also be able to do bonus crit rate against cryo enemies affected by cryo. Not sure if that's the case, but it will be interesting to see if it's the case. Because if that's truly the way it works, then it will be actually very good, because it becomes very easy to get the maximum effect of the crit rate here. Which I think it makes sense, because otherwise it's kind of demanding to pump her crit rate up to 100% without the cryo's resonance effect and the blizzard effect. And if those effects are considered, then she will actually be a very good DPS burst support. It seems like it should, but we wouldn't know just from reading these stats. We'll probably know in future when we see some leaked videos or the actual update itself, actual release of the character itself. Okay, lastly, let's look at the constellations. So for constellations wise, her C1 is not too bad. basically whenever you do a critical strike, okay, and let me just look at the Chinese just to confirm what type of attacks. Oh, okay. So based on this description, it should mean that any attack, not just normal attack, any of the attacks done by Rosaria, upon doing a crit, you will get a 10% attack speed buff as well as a 10% normal attack damage buff, which lasts for 4 seconds. So basically, you can definitely get 100% uptime on this because she's a character that you need to build her crit rate anyway, right? So this is actually a very good C1. Basically, it's almost like a perma effect as long as you are attacking. This is nice. 10% attack speed, 10% normal attack damage. So again, this is going back to the theme of her being a main DPS. Okay, the elemental burst duration, the continuous damage duration is increased by 4 seconds. So instead of 8 seconds, now it's buffed to 12 seconds. So only 3 seconds downtime, provided you can get that 60 energy up in time. So this is pretty good. So C2 makes her very effective as a burst as well, but not really necessary per se, but it's good, yeah. C3 standard, just the level buff, C5 as well. C4, basically every time you deal a crit with your elemental skill. Okay, wait, sorry, I should change it back to English, right? Basically every time you do a crit with your elemental skill, you will gain 5 elemental energy for Rosaria only. So it's not a particle op where you can just switch the character and get it. It's just for Rosaria. At most once per... okay, because her elemental skill is a 2-hit skill, so that's why they have to add this statement saying that it will only be triggered once. So even if both of your hits deal critical damage, you will only restore once, which is the 5 elemental energy. C6 here, I feel that it's a bit underwhelming for a C6. Basically, each attack of the Sacrament of Death, okay, in this case the Sacrament of Death translation is correct. Yeah, I have no idea how Google Translate works, but anyway, basically the attacks of her elemental burst will reduce the enemy's physical resistance by 5% for 5 seconds, and it allows to stack up to 4 times. I feel that this is very underwhelming actually. So it's just 5% physical resistance and you need to slowly stack it up unless the first hit as well as the second hit as well as the continuous damage all counts toward the 4 stacks. Then it's not so bad because the moment she casts her skill, you should be able to get 3 stacks. So 3 stacks, which is 15% reduction, is not too bad. But it still remains to see how big her AoE is, because if her elemental burst AoE is huge, or at least the size of say Ganyu or even Diona, then it's actually pretty nice. Otherwise, as of now, it looks to me like C6 is a bit underwhelming. C4 is I guess it really helps with her keeping her elemental burst up in terms of 100% uptime, but I don't think it's necessary per se if you can get enough ER on her. So it's not like super important, her constellations. In fact, the constellations feel kind of weak to me. So it looks like C2 on her is good enough. But I think C0 itself is also okay. She doesn't need all this to work, right? Fundamentally at C0, I think she will be very good because she's still able to give crit rate without any constellations at C0 to her team members. Oh, and on top of 15% from Cryo Resonance, 40% from Blizzard set, she also has a crit rate 12% for 5 seconds after using the elemental skill and connecting to the target from behind, attacking the target from behind. So it sounds like it's quite easy to pump her crit rate up to give a max bonus, unless the Cryo and Blizzard set don't work. then yeah, it will be much tougher. But at least she does have an effect on her talent to increase crit rate as well. So sounds like BIS weapon for her will be weapons with crit rate. So the first one I can think of is the Battle Pass weapon, Deathmatch. And you have the Primordial Jadewind Spear, right? Vortex Vanquisher is not that great, but if you want to go physical DPS on her, Crescent Pike would probably be better because of the additional attack effect from Crescent Pike. But obviously all of those has to be tested in future when we actually do get the release of the character. So anyway, the video has gone on longer than I would have wanted it to. But I hope it's informative enough with this analysis on her talents, her constellations, her skills, as well as her skill attack percentage. Yeah. So it looks to me like she's better off as she will do better as a main DPS rather than a sub, but she still can be a sub DPS due to her other effects, due to her kit itself. So looks like a pretty good character to roll for. I mean, in the first place with her looks, I'm pretty sure a lot of people will roll for her anyway. So yeah. Alright, so that's the end of the video itself. If you like the content so far, remember to like the video and click subscribe for more, yeah? Alright, thanks everyone for watching. Bye.